Coming up on F'ing Up the Ineffable.
Whatever, very close to whatever your limit is. Push to that, and you're good. You can stay that way forever.
Well, so let me ask you this, because we were starting to kind of define stuff a minute ago, and when we use the terms like discipline or motivation, you said not motivated to do whatever. The way that I look at it, I'm curious whether you see it the same way or not. Okay, when somebody talks about whether they are motivated or not motivated to do something, I see that as some external factor that is impacting your internal drive to act. Okay. For example, you might be motivated to lose weight, but you're motivated because you want to look good to another person, or because you have a family reunion, or not family. That probably doesn't sound good. I meant a school reunion.
We are in the South, Mike.
I did mean a school reunion, but
Sure
to each their own.
Sure you
hey,
did.
hey, I once when I was a teenager, I had a second cousin hit on me. So I'm just saying. No, but seriously, like there's some external thing.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian.
And I'm Mike. We're experts in some things, such as IT, which we'll probably never discuss.
We're published authors with over 20 books.
Wait, we are? Which ones did I write?
We're musicians who played on albums and TV.
And developers who have written software used by literally millions of people.
Wait, really? I have?
Over the years, we have had in-depth conversations about everything from theoretical physics
to the nature of consciousness.
to why Marvel is way better than DC.
Is it, though?
And we thought maybe you'd like to listen in. Trust us, we're really interesting people. And smart.
And don't forget good looking.
And we're effing up the ineffable.
Okay, so this week we are going to discuss habit, which I think is the second most powerful force on Earth. Motivation.
Wait, what's the first most powerful?
The most powerful force on Earth is culture.
Culture. Okay, yeah.
But that's just because it's habit for society. So
yeah, makes sense.
So habit, motivation, and discipline.
Yeah.
Basically. So take us away.
Well, yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about habits, and I think the thing that a lot of people don't get, but when you talk about habits, most people talk about good habits and bad habits. Like I exercise or I diet, and that's a good habit, or I smoke or drink too much or things like that, and those are bad habits. And we see those as things that are like outliers. You know what I mean? It's like these are the things that I do that are better or worse than the average person, or
Sure.
Something like that, and we try to categorize those things. But something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is just how everything that we do regularly, I mean, it's a habit, whether we think about it as that or not. I mean, if you drive the same way to work every day, or, if you have a certain routine when you get up in the morning, when you go pee and go take a shower and whatever else,
Right.
those are habits.
Right.
And they're not necessarily good or bad. There's no value that's placed on them in any of the way. It's just, we all have things that we do that we form routines based off of the habits that we do. And then sometimes we break those in various ways due to a number of different circumstances. So a lot of times I think that when people are trying to figure out how to do something different in their life, they want to lose weight, or they want to get stronger, or they want to quit smoking, or they want a better job, or any number of things, they try to look at ways that they can develop new, better habits in order to combat those things. But, just like New Year's resolutions and things like that, they're so often unsuccessful. So what I was hoping you and I could talk about was, I feel like you and I have both thought a lot about this. We've read books about it. I was hoping we could just talk about what are some of the things that we've seen that helps you. You hear it all the time. People say, well, I don't have enough willpower, or I'm not motivated to do this, or, those types of things. And I've felt that myself before plenty of times. But, like, what are the things that actually work or has worked for us? Or, what is some of the science behind that? So that's what I was hoping to talk about. What do you think?
Okay, so I think I've got a lot of things to say about that. To start with, when you were talking about everything being habit, one of the things I think is kind of interesting is for most of us, the things we do every day, that in a lot of cases we've been doing for decades, right? The same way.
Right.
We put no thought into.
Right.
Like,
It's one of those, we've always done it this way.
Or we were taught to do it that way, right?
Right,
Or by our
yep.
parents, by like our mom, or
Sure.
like, like, and I don't know, maybe, I mean, I'm weird in a lot of ways, but I think this is one of the ways in which I'm kind of weird, is that there's a lot of things in that vein that I've actually thought quite a lot about. Like, I wash myself differently than my mom taught me to wash, right?
Right.
Because there are certain, I feel like, efficiencies that can be gained from doing it in certain ways. And I don't brush my teeth the way my mom taught me to brush my teeth, because I've actually done some research on it, and I understand what that does. I understand that basically brushing your teeth is more than anything a mechanism for getting fluoride directly on your teeth. Like, unless you've got something stuck on your teeth, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Brushing doesn't actually do a whole hell of a lot other than putting fluoride on your teeth. So, it used to be I would brush my teeth really rough. I would scrub them pretty hard to try
Right.
to get all that stuff off. But now I realize, okay, after flossing and after, just, a gentle brushing of your teeth, if that didn't get it off, scrubbing it isn't going to help. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
again, the science is that it's mainly a mechanism to just get fluoride on your teeth. So, there's a lot of little things like that that I feel like I've thought about a little bit, that I've changed my own habits on. But I really think the reason a lot of these habits go unexamined is partially because we're just not thinking about it, but partially because in a lot of cases, changing it would be negative. This is one of the you're not going to hear this very much from me, but this is a place where I'll give credit where credit's due. This is one of the things that conservatism is a there's a benefit to conservatism, because with conservatism, what you're actually doing is you're preserving a way of doing things that has worked for some period of time.
Right.
And in a lot of cases has many, many years of trial and error, for other people, sometimes generations of people behind it. So often if you make a change to that, you're going to actually make it worse.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's, trial and error. It has error as part of it, right? I mean, but that's the thing. You learn from that. You develop best practices, and then from those best practices, that's the things you start to teach, right? I mean, you think about, and it's technically, I guess it's habit, but you think about back in the 1800s when they would do surgery, and they actually thought that washing your hands as part of surgery was a bad thing.
Right.
Like, the idea behind washing your hands and that actually preventing germs, like the germ theory was not a thing right yet, right? I mean, there was some people that had some ideas, but then you develop this best practice that, okay, we're gonna wash our hands, before we go stick them inside somebody, right? And then we're gonna teach other people to do that, and then you see that because those habits were developed, then the idea, surgeries got better, that there were higher success rates in the things that they were doing. You take those things along, and then of course, a blue million other things that we do that we build upon what's been learned before, and you develop additional habits. And to your point, when somebody comes in and says, well, I want to do it completely different. Well, you got to have a really, really good case behind it for it to actually be more successful than whatever the baseline is for anything that's been established for some long period of time.
Right. I think we're actually, away from kind of personal uses of this at this point. We're kind of getting into more societal issues, more like cultural issues, which is why I said culture is more powerful than habit. But there is one case of this which kind of you reminded me of. So there's actually cases in which going against the practice can actually, or what, not really going against the practice, but doing something different to try to push the whatever it is, the science forward,
right?
Actually makes things worse. So there was a case, I think it was tuberculosis, but it was way back, because you were talking about washing your hands and the germ theory and all that.
Mm-hmm.
This was before that. Okay. So doctors really didn't wash their hands. They would go from patient to patient, and nobody understood how anything worked. We all thought, that you could, you had spirits in your blood, and
ill humors.
Yeah. And you need to bleed them out of you and shit, you take leeches about it, that kind of stuff. But,
Yep.
Anyway, this doctor had developed this diagnostic test for tuberculosis, and he found that in something like, I don't know, some very high percentage, like 80 to 100% of the cases, when he did this diagnostic test, the person ended up having tuberculosis. So what it turned out is that he was like sticking his hands inside them somewhere, and his hands had just been inside somebody with tuberculosis. So, he was giving these patients tuberculosis. He was 100% right.
Exactly.
If he did that to a patient, they were definitely going to
Mary.
Yeah, they were definitely going to get tuberculosis. But so I mean, back to the more personal level of this.
Yep.
I think, the thing that and we don't want to get too far into this, because this is going to be another podcast at some point, and it is definitely going to be a big topic, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. But
can't wait.
I think one thing people don't understand, or sometimes do understand, and are just so it feels so bad, they have such a visceral reaction to this, that they don't want to believe it. But that is that we are creatures like every other creature on earth. We're automatons, man. You don't have free will like you think you do. And I'm not going to go much further into that. I'm just going to say, when we do get to the episode, I'll prove it. Okay. If you're honest with yourself, I'll give you a trick to where you can prove it to yourself that you do not have free will. But all I'm going to say about that is why that's relevant is because if you look at yourself as an automaton, as a creature without free will, right, then the optimal thing to do is to develop a habit. Develop the habit you want to develop, right? Because if you're trying to get yourself to do something, that's the way to do it. The moment you can take, like using System 1 and System 2 terminology, because I'm rereading that book now, the Thinking Fast and Slow, but using System 1, System 2 terminology, System 1 is automatic actions, things you don't think about, things that just occur. Habits fall into that category.
Right. But it's also like your gut feelings or your initial reactions to things.
Yep.
It's those types of things as well. Yeah.
Things you're not even conscious of fall into System 1. System 2 is more, I mean, I don't want to say it's consciousness, because it's a little different than that, but it's
reasoning.
Right. It's planning, that kind of, all the things we tend to shove over in the realm of conscious thought, right? The more things you can do that you want to do without involving System 2, the better. Because System 2 is fucking lazy, right? System 2 doesn't want to do anything, right? So if you have to engage your brain to do the hard thing every morning, there are going to be mornings where your brain says, where your System 2 says, nah, bro, not feeling it. Like, we didn't sleep good last night. We've been a little sick, wife bitched at me last night and I'm still pissed off. I got to go to work today. I got to breathe. I don't want to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that shit's going to happen. So the trick to making a habit stick is you have to figure out a way to where you don't have to think about it.
Right.
The more you don't have to think about it, the better off you are.
So I tend to think of that as, and maybe we should define some of these terms, but I think of that as discipline. Now, I know you and I probably disagree on a lot of things, but at least agreeing on the terms here, I think will help. But if I'm just trying to think of when we talk about habit, motivation, discipline, willpower, those are all words that get popped up that some people will use a couple of those interchangeably, but I don't think they're interchangeable. I think
No,
that
in fact, I would say there's a difference between discipline and willpower,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
and I would say discipline. There's like a scale here. It's like habit is something that is purely in system one. You don't think about it. You don't question it. You certainly do not choose not to do it just because of how you're feeling in the morning.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with you. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of things that we do that are habitual, that are habits that are not. I mean, you may think about them, but they're not. Um, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that they're not. You're not an automaton. You actually have to go through a process, right?
Yeah, but you're not when I say you're not thinking about it, you're not making the choice to do it or not do it, right? If you're making the choice to do something or not do something,
Oh, okay. I'm following you. I'm following you,
the,
and I agree with you that. So
yeah, I'm not saying you're not thinking about it the whole time you're doing it. I'm just saying, like, if I have a habit, I eat the same thing every day, right? And I do that mostly because it's the easiest way I know of to keep my calories in line, right? Um, I don't think about that. Like every day when I get up, I go and I make my lunch before I head to work, and I do the same thing there's no thought. There is never a case in which I'm
Right.
going, what am I going to eat today? I already know. I already paid for it. I already bought it. It's in the fridge. I know exactly how it's going to go together. I do it the same way every day. I eat it the same time every day. It takes the exact same amount of time every fucking day. Like it's planned so well that I can bracket things. It's something I don't have to worry about,
Right. So to your point, so yes, so I agree with you on the definition of a habit. I think we're on the same page there. And what you're talking about when you were talking about trying to push things more into system one, being that you don't think about them, that it becomes just part of what you do, right? It's part of who you are or what you do. Um, like in your case, you got to eat, right? How many people go to work and they get hungry around lunchtime and they say, I wonder what I want to eat. I wonder what I'm going to eat. Maybe they brought their lunch and they thought about it earlier that day, but maybe they're going out to eat fast food or out with friends from work, or maybe they don't eat at all, or, any of those things. But so many people are consciously making a decision at that point. And when you open your mind up to make a decision about it, there are decisions that can be made that are detrimental to you, right? So like if your habit is, and you mentioned calories, so I'll just say this. Let's just say my plan is to eat less than 500 calories for lunch. Okay, let's just say that's the thing. But if you don't have a plan in place, if you don't know what the foods are that are going to fit in that space, or if you don't know what options you're going to have, if you haven't already planned ahead of time, then when you get to the point where you say, okay, now I need to choose what I'm going to eat. Well, some of those choices are things that are going to be more than 500 calories. You've opened yourself up to a case where you can change your mind.
Yep.
And that's part of what kind of breaks that habit. And you'll hear a lot of people that'll say, well, I don't have the willpower. Like, that cheesecake just looked too good and I didn't have enough willpower, so I added that to my lunch or whatever. And what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, is that if you don't think about it, then you can't make a bad choice because you're not making a choice at all.
Yep. And this transcends a lot of, I mean, it's not even just habit. Like you can take this same philosophy and translate it into life. I mean, one of the one of the cases I'm going to bring up, which is this is kind of intensely personal, but there was there was, I think everybody has this concern. You get married, you get concerned that now I've made a promise to this person, right? To not hurt them, and you get in a situation to where there's some attraction to somebody else, right?
Okay.
I have never been caught in that situation and actually followed through on it. And the reason I haven't is because I have it in my head that I'm never going to let myself be in that situation.
Right.
Like, it's always in my head. The moment I start feeling that, it's like danger, Will Robinson, and I pick my shit up and I go do something else. You know what I'm saying? You can feel it. So if you have this, it's not even discipline. It's kind of like a warning bell, right? That keeps you from getting into this dangerous place. So you never enter the dangerous place, so that you can't, you can't possibly do the thing you don't want to do. It's removing the thought, the temptation completely from your head. That's
Right.
the whole point.
It's kind of the difference between, let's just say that you're trying to quit drinking and you've got people that, they'll go out with friends to a bar and then choose not to drink versus the people that never go to the bar in the first place.
Correct.
You are, you could quit drinking either way, but you're making it more difficult on yourself when you're putting yourself in a situation where you can be tempted more easily.
Absolutely. Yeah. You cannot. And I've had that exact same problem with alcohol. Actually, I mean, I don't have an alcohol problem, but I've had times in my life.
Your only problem is when you run out.
I've had times in my life where I have drank real heavily for long periods of time. Like, during COVID, I drank pretty much every night for like a year and a half or something. And I mean, I even, mentioned to you, at one point that I was drinking like a gallon of vodka a week. Like, it was, two handles a week.
Yeah.
And I did that for a year or over a year. When I quit, when I decided I'm going to stop doing this, right? When I did that, it was a full stop. Like, I didn't go to bars. I didn't do the things I used to do. Just like smoking, right? When I quit smoking, right? I didn't, for a long time, I had to kind of be guarded against things that I knew were going to trigger that urge. There had to be the danger, Will Robinson, you cannot let yourself be tempted thing. It wasn't, and it's not a willpower thing. It's literally, it really isn't. It's not like I'm fighting this urge to do this thing. It is, I recognize if I get into this situation, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be tempting, and I don't want to push against the temptation. I would rather just not be in the situation.
Well, and it's also, when you're newly in that, you are trying to develop a new habit, right? Let's just, for example, it's kind of binary, but I smoked, now I don't smoke, right? I did, and now I don't. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about, there was a book that I read. I think you actually recommended it to me. It was called The Power of Habit, by Charles Duhigg, I think. I think you had recommended it to me.
It sounds familiar, but
yeah.
I don't.
But the idea around some of that, like a habit itself, is kind of, you have three parts to a habit. You've got a cue, a response, and then a reward, right? So there's something that makes you do the thing. There's the thing you do, and then there's the reason you do it, right? I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. So if you think of, a good example is, let's just say that you were talking about drinking every night. Well, I've been through a situation similarly where, frankly, I was in a bad, dark place, and I was kind of doing the same thing, and it was not for great reasons, but it was a habit. I would, there was times I would drink a bottle of wine a night, right? Or whatever else, every night. And during that time, I try to think of myself as being somewhat disciplined. I laugh at myself when I think back to that time right now, because I worked during the day and I had to be functional and do my job and, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. And then at night, I was alone and depressed and just wanted to kind of go away. Right. But the cue happened to be the time, because I made myself decide that I was not going to start drinking until it was at least 7 p.m. and because I didn't want to start too early and just, so there would be this cue of, oh, it's 7 o'clock. I can start drinking now. And then I would start drinking. And frankly, I was trying to get away from stuff that just was weighing really heavily on me. I was depressed. And the reward in that particular situation was that it kind of went away. I forgot about it. I was, distracted or whatever.
Yep.
So what you're describing though, and again, I got that from that particular book, but the way they talk about changing those habits, the not smoking to smoking, not drinking, I'm sorry, drinking to not drinking, whatever, or vice versa, if that's what you want to do. I mean, it's like, I really want to start a new drinking habit.
My New Year's resolution this year is I'm going to be an alcoholic by June.
Yeah. Is the idea is that you can't change the cue. 7 o'clock is going to come whether you're drinking or not. The cue is always going to be there. Maybe it's that you had a stressful day at work. Maybe it's that you look yourself in the mirror and you go, I'm disgusting. I need to do something about it. Or any number of things. The cues are always going to be there and you can't make them go away. But then what you can do is change the routine. So, and you have to change the routine to something that still gives you a reward.
Right.
A lot of people will go and they see themselves as being, fat, and they're like, okay, I'm going to go run, and they don't enjoy it and it hurts and they don't get any reward out of it and they can't sustain it because they're not seeing any kind of reward from it.
Right.
So you got to not trick your brain, but train your brain into seeing how you get those rewards. One thing that I saw somebody do, and there's a lot of different things we can talk about with habits, but they decided to pair something that they enjoyed doing along with running on a treadmill. So they're back when Game of Thrones was out, they decided that during the season, during Game of Thrones, probably not the last season, they would only allow themselves to stream it while they were on the treadmill.
I see. Yep.
So what they did was, here it's an hour, it's episodes. So they would get on the treadmill for an hour every week and watch Game of Thrones while they were on the treadmill. They paired that and it was like they got that reward. It was really kind of cool, so I kind of like that idea. It's not always easy to try to take every example and fit it easily into that cue and routine and reward. But I think a lot of times if you think of it that way, you can start finding ways to develop better habits.
Yeah, I think you're kind of keying on something here that I had not thought about it this way, but I did something kind of similar. So first of all, for like exercise for that particular habit, I think the best advice I've ever heard is to do whatever exercise you're willing to do. Like, the best exercise for you is the one you'll actually do, right?
Right. Yeah.
You might think, oh, I'd love to be a good runner or a bicyclist or whatever. I'd love to do that. And then you try it once and you're like, this fucking sucks, right? Now, a lot of things are like that. Almost all exercises like that if you push it hard enough, right? Yeah. The trick is you need to find something that you don't hate. Like if you wake up every morning and and you're thought about doing the thing while you're still thinking about it, because it takes about a month or so for you to fully get it into the habit mode. But until then, every morning your system 2 is going to be trying to go, hey guy, pretty sure you don't want to do this today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and if it's saying that in an environment of you wake up and you instantly dread doing the thing anyway, right? It's not going to take very long before that kind of crashes and burns, right?
Right. And we talked about willpower, and that's one of those things where I think most people would attribute that to willpower. And then willpower is a real thing. I don't want to make it sound like it's not, but willpower is kind of like a muscle, or maybe like a container, right? Like there is a finite amount of resource that you have for willpower. And the more that you stress it, the more that you try to use it, you deplete yourself of it.
I would say even if when you're first developing a habit, willpower cannot be what gets you through every day. Okay.
Right.
Willpower is the last resort. Like what you're looking for when you're developing a habit is, I don't hate it. Hopefully I even kind of like it. Right. I really want the result at the end. Right. Yeah. I'm highly motivated.
Right.
To get
exactly.
to get to that result.
Right. Like working out, like you see this picture of this guy that's jacked, and you're like, that's my goal. Right. That's, you know,
and that's and if you are that person, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you are that person, you need to understand a couple of things. One, that's a very long-term goal. Mm-hmm. Two, abs are made in the kitchen. Okay?
Right.
3, that person's probably on more drugs than you ever imagined in your entire life.
And who knows how that photo was edited before you ever saw it. So yeah.
But I'm not going to be one of those people that says it's not attainable, because, you know, everyone has a different kind of genetic limit for that stuff. And I don't know where yours is. I do know that no matter who you are, you can be in better shape tomorrow than you are today. So, you know, try for that.
Yeah.
You know, but back to my point, I think if you can enjoy the thing you're doing, that makes it almost easy to develop it into a habit. But if you can't find any way of doing this thing that you enjoy, and I was this way with cardio, so I don't do cardio anymore, which is, you know, telling in and of itself. But when I was on the last legs of trying to get to, you know, 10% body fat, nothing was getting me there. Like I could not starve myself enough to get there. I got to the point to where I mean, you can get so hungry to where it's actually pretty much all you think about. Like most nights I would dream about food. I would be eating food in my dreams, and then I would wake up and go, God damn it. You know? So you can get incredible where food is almost the only thing on your mind. Right.
But and I'm just going to say out loud, that's probably not healthy. Right.
No. I mean, you're definitely anytime. So one of the reasons it gets so hard, and it's different for everybody. Some people might walk around with 10% body fat and not think anything of it because that's where their metabolic set point is.
Right. That's
not where my metabolic set point is. So the farther you get away from your metabolic set point, the harder your body fights you to get back to it. So for me, when I got to around 15% body fat, I can hold 15, or I could in my 30s anyway, I could hold, you know, 15% body fat without much effort. You know, as long as I didn't drink and I kept my diet in line, I was fine. But to get below that was pretty hard. So I started doing cardio, and I would do an hour of cardio.
What did you do?
So I did recumbent biking.
Okay.
I would do an hour of cardio 3 days a week. And I did, when I say I did recumbent biking, I didn't just sit on the bike and pedal. Like I was going balls to the wall at the maximum resistance on the thing, you know, to the point where I was sweating, I'm breathing hard, I'm running like 130 beats per minute on my heart rate, you know, pretty much constantly, you know, I'm busting my ass the whole time, but it's torture, dude. It's awful. So I did kind of the same thing that the person you were talking about did. I would put on Netflix. I would just have a queue of things I wanted to watch.
Right.
And I would put on Netflix and I would just watch the thing. And it's not like it made it enjoyable, really. It didn't.
You're really distracting yourself from
right.
it. Yeah.
You didn't think about it. And so it wasn't nearly as awful. And also there was the additional advantage of, you know, when I thought about, I really don't want to do it today, it would be like, but I do want to see that thing.
Well, exactly.
You know?
So, you know, just disclosure. So, you know, you and I work out together, 3 days a week typically. And there have been a lot of days that I'll come over to go work out with you that I'll kind of think the same thing. Like, I really don't want to see Brian. No, I'm kidding. No, I'll think I just don't feel it. I feel tired. I feel sore. I didn't sleep well. I drank last night, whatever, you know, plenty of reasons. I've been sick, all those things that you talked about earlier. And at the same time, you know, you and I are talking here on this podcast, but we talk all the time. You know, we will sit there and just run our mouths about who knows what for 2 hours while we're working out, and I really enjoy that. So I mean, and part of it too is just the accountability. You're working out with somebody, you have an obligation to them and them to you to kind of show up, right? But I do look forward to talking to you about whatever's on our minds or whatever, and that does make it enjoyable. And where I might be dreading squats, I might at the same time be looking forward to coming and just, you know,
I mean,
chewing the cud, you know.
it's mutual. I mean, from my perspective, like, you know, I've been working out for, you know, probably 15 years. Let's see. No more than that, about 8, almost 20 now. I'm working out for a long time, you know, consistently, you know, but I've always done it alone, always. Right.
And I had to until this,
and until you started coming over. But now on the weeks where, you know, you're on vacation or whatever, and you're not going to be over there, I just don't work out. Like it's like, I don't want to, you know, it's like, you know, it's not that it's not still a habit. It is. I wake up in the morning and I think, okay, today is a day that I'm supposed to work out.
Right.
But it's like, I know at this point, first of all, I'm 50 years old. I'm not getting much stronger, right? I'm pretty much where I'm going to be, right? Now I'm just fighting the downhill slide, right? So there's not the motivation I used to have, which is I can push beyond where I've been and get to some new plateau. You know what I'm saying? That's gone. So I'm in the place now where I'm like, I'm just maintaining. And that's not really self-motivating, but more importantly, it doesn't really require much. Like, to maintain a physique at a certain level doesn't take a lot of effort. You just need to go into the gym, you know, once every couple of weeks and do whatever your whatever, you know, very close to whatever your limit is. Push to that, and you're good. You can stay that way forever, you know?
Well, so let me ask you this, because we were starting to kind of define stuff a minute ago. And when we use the terms like discipline or motivation, you said not motivated to do whatever. The way that I look at it, and I'm curious whether you see it the same way or not, okay? When somebody talks about whether they're motivated or not motivated to do something, I see that as some external factor that is impacting your internal drive to act. Okay. For example, you might be motivated to lose weight, but you're motivated because you want to look good to another person, or because you have a family reunion, or not family. That probably doesn't sound good.
Cousin Sue sure was hot in the last reunion. We are in the South, Mike. I mean, you know.
I did mean a school reunion, but
sure
you know, to each their
did.
own.
Sure you
hey,
did.
Hey, I once when I was a teenager, I had a second cousin hit on me, so I'm just saying. No, but seriously, like there's some external thing. Sometimes, again, it might just be looking in the mirror, and even though you might see it as being internal, it's still this. It's like there's this external thought that's like, I need to make a change because I don't like the way I look. You know what I mean? It's still, it may be coming from inside your own head, but it's like an input, right? Even if it's a loop inside your own brain, it's that input that's causing you to do that. Whereas when I think of discipline, it's kind of along the lines of when you were talking about being an automaton. It's this internal, stimulus. Like it's like the idea of saying, this is what I do, this is who I am.
I think we have the exact same conception, but I would put it a little differently. I would like to chalk this up as the difference between willpower and discipline. Willpower is something you have to do. Okay, so if you're gonna work out in the morning and you wake up feeling like just dookie, right? And you're like, I'm gonna make myself do. I've got to do this. I'm gonna fucking do it. I'm gonna make myself do it. You gut through it and you go do it.
Right.
That's willpower. Okay. The idea that you put into your head, like for instance with the cardio, my idea was, I'm only gonna watch these shows, and the person you were
Yeah.
talking about. Only going to watch these shows while I'm doing cardio. That's discipline.
Right.
You've made a rule and you've decided when you're completely free of the temptation to not do the thing. When there's no temptation, right? You have decided this is my code. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to live my life. And you put that rule in your head. And what ends up happening, what's so powerful about this, is that when you get in the moment, it doesn't even occur to you that I could just watch the fucking show. Like,
Right.
I don't have to fucking do that. I can just watch the goddamn show. Like, I'm a grown fucking man. I
Yeah.
can watch the show if I want to watch the fucking show,
That's
right?
right.
It doesn't even occur to you. Like, that's not even in your head. It's just like, I want to watch the show, so I got to do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, and you go sit down and you do the thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's just like, you know, I hear people say a lot of times like they don't feel like working out, but they go to a gym, or like, you know, we work out together, and it's like, I don't feel like working out, but I go to the gym on these days, so I'm going to show up and go to the gym. Like that's the discipline part of it. It's I'm not committing to doing everything that I've got to do as part of workout, but I go to the gym on Thursday, so I'm going to the gym.
Yep.
And then once you get there, it's like your body just kind of takes over and you do all the things
Yep.
you're supposed to do.
Unless you're in really bad shape, and then you don't. Like,
Yeah.
I'm also not, like, especially with exercise. Diet's a little different. Diet, I mean, unless you're doing something really stupid, don't go do something really stupid. Don't live on a fucking 200 calorie a day water and bread diet. Like, don't do really.
I like the beer and ice cream diet that I read about.
Oh, nice. Yeah, beer, ice cream, and a handful of multivitamins. There you go.
No, seriously. Have you ever heard of the
No,
idea?
but I've heard of the Twinkies diet.
Well, so the I'm not saying this works, okay? But the thought behind the beer and ice cream diet is that if you only drink very cold beer and eat, you know,
this is so fucking stupid.
I know, but the thought behind it is that your body spends calories to warm those things
I mean,
up.
that's not wrong.
But- yeah.
The problem is it spends like 4 fucking calories to warm up a beer. Like, it's not
Right.
it's the same thing with, like, you know, if you eat enough celery, that you'll end up burning more calories than you gain. No, you fucking won't. Like, yes, it takes a lot of calories to chew celery. Maybe it's even calorie neutral, but it's not fucking calorie negative. If it was, then celery would be the greatest diet aid known to man. Like, someone.
Believe me, if you eat nothing but celery all day every day, you will lose weight.
Oh yeah, you definitely will. Yeah. So what I was saying, don't do something stupid, right?
Yeah.
But like, you need to set a plan in motion, right? That's the important part of developing a habit or building a habit, is you've got to decide, you know, these are the rules that I'm going to live by, and remove temptation completely from the map there. So that's never an issue.
Right. So I do want to change kind of what we're talking about a little bit, though, because we've talked a lot about like diet, exercise, and quitting smoking, quitting drinking, healthful kind of things. And, you know, a lot of people do, you know, that they want to develop better habits or get out of bad habits with those things. But something that I have probably struggled more with myself has been other types of habits. And I'll try to explain. You know, we've talked about, you know, I'm a software developer. I enjoy in my free time developing video games. And I've created a couple of different things. But one of the things that I have a hard time with is finishing projects. Like, and I think this can be extrapolated out to a lot more than just thinking about, you know, developing video games. But the idea of any project, it could be something that you're doing around the house. You're going to build a deck on the back of the house, or, you know, power wash your driveway, or anything that's going to take a little bit of effort and a little bit of planning, right? But especially those projects that take a long time. You know, you're going to build a gazebo in your backyard, or I'm going to build a video game, or whatever, is that you can get excited about the idea, and that excitement will motivate you to get started on something. But then when you get into a part of it that becomes difficult or tedious, or the conditions change where you don't have as much time as you thought you were going to have, or maybe you don't have the skills that you thought you were going to, or you don't have the right skills to do the thing you thought you needed to do, or any number of things, it can become demotivating. And when we talk about habit, one of the things about habit is that you've got to prove to yourself that you're able to do the thing that you're trying to develop a habit of.
Right.
And finishing is one of those things. That's something that I've struggled with at times because, so I guess what I want to say is with that type of thing, a lot of people will suggest, starting small. And when you're talking about developing habits, again, I'm the type of person that, I set the bar very high, and then I struggle to meet the demands of what that has, and I get discouraged
Sure.
by those types of things. Um, and you hear it a lot of times, and this is something that I've found that's been helpful, but it's also hard for me to even follow, even though I know it's helpful, is to pick small things to try to build those habits from. You don't have to go build the next World of Warcraft if you're trying to build video games. What if you again, this is just for me, but what if you just decided that you wanted to go recreate Space Invaders? Like that's pretty simple. You could do that, or the same thing with like
But
people.
did you get excited about it? Do you get excited enough to even start it?
Yeah, and that's the hard part.
Right.
I mean, one example is that, and I did kind of the same thing as I was going to recreate asteroids. Okay, like that, like it wasn't that hard. I was like, I can do this. I can knock it out in a weekend. And I literally had my son he plays a variety of instruments, and he was at this like district band thing, and before he was driving, and I was just hanging out waiting for him to do his audition and stuff, and I was there for a couple of hours. I'm sitting on my phone and I'm brainstorming, and before you knew it, I had added all of these features and functions and gameplay
Scope creep.
mechanics and all sorts of things to plain old
Yep.
asteroids. And I was really excited about
But
it.
it got you excited about it,
did,
right?
yeah.
Right.
And I ended up, and I built it, and that's awesome. But then I ran into something where I found that somebody else had created a game similar to it, but better. Let's just be honest. It had a lot. It was just better. I don't need to go into all the details, but so here I was, like, I had built all the mechanics, and I was just building content for it at that point, and I got discouraged, and I didn't finish it.
So I got a couple things to say about it.
Yeah.
First of all, in your specific case, I want to ask about something.
Yeah.
So when you say it was better, what is your litmus test? Is it just that it had more features? It had features you didn't think of? It had features you thought were cool? Or did you actually play the thing and found out that it's much more fun than your game?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I read about it. I did not play it. But yes, to the features, or it wasn't so much the ideas as much as it was just
the execution.
Yeah, it just felt like it was
Polished.
right. But again, I read about it. I didn't play it.
Yeah, so I think if you're going, especially as much time as you put into the thing, if you're going to quit it, at least do yourself the courtesy of giving the competitor a full review,
Yeah.
a full, as unbiased as you can be, review.
Yeah.
Don't be kind to yourself, but don't beat yourself up either. If your shit's more fun, release it, dude. Like, fun is what the game's about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So do that. But I just listened to a podcast. I haven't read her book yet, but she was obviously, as most of these podcasts, she was promoting a book, so that's why she was on the podcast. But this lady, she's a PhD psychologist. Was a professional poker player. Like, she's done a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
She has this book on the power of quitting. And the case she was making was very econ driven, very economist driven. But it was basically that there is an opportunity cost to continuing something that you're no longer confident in anymore.
Yeah.
You can force yourself to do that. You can push yourself forward, and you can make it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a plethora of willpower and just, grit and just gutting through it, right? It often does not turn out well because it's uninspired, and it almost never matches your expectations of the thing. And you wasted a whole bunch of time that you could have spent working on something else.
Yeah, there's a term in like corporate America where they're talking about fail fast.
Yeah,
If you've heard that, but
yeah.
it's kind of the same thing.
Yep.
It's like,
and that's exactly what she said.
Yeah.
You want to, and I kind of agree with this because it's like, I'm very fond of this saying because it's from my teaching days, and I don't think it gets said enough. You never learn from your successes. The only way you learn is by
Yeah.
failing. You have to fail. If you ever want to learn, you have to fail. It's the price of learning. Okay. And if you think about it like that, failing becomes a lot more attractive. You're no longer in this mindset of I suck, I failed. You know, you're more in this mindset, I failed. I know that's not the way to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You hear a lot of times the whole, Edison tried 1,000 times
Right.
before he came up, he learned that.
Actually, Edison ripped off a bunch of people who tried 1,000 times before they came up with the answer. Let's be real here.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But yes, you're right. You're going to fail a lot more times than you're going to succeed.
Well, but the other thing that I wanted to say about that is that, a lot of times when we try to set a habit, like whether it be weight loss or whether it be whatever, like we were talking about looking at that guy that's jacked and saying, I want to be that guy. Well, first of all, if that's your goal and that's your only goal, you're probably going to fail. I mean, some people will succeed.
I mean, you're never going to look just like that guy.
Well, no, but the point is that, I mean, if you're, and again, obviously it depends on where you're starting, but if you're a game developer and you've never written a line of code, you're not going to make World of Warcraft on your first try.
Oh yeah.
If
you're a solo game developer, you're not going to make World of Warcraft.
Right.
Anyway.
And I'm using that as an example. I've barely ever played WoW, but you know what I mean? Or Skyrim, whatever. But same thing with with weight loss. Like if you got 100 pounds to lose, don't make your goal to lose 100 pounds. Make your goal to lose 20 pounds first.
Or make the long-term goal 100 pounds and make a bunch of short-term goals.
Well, but the thing is, you want to start practicing and having a habit of succeeding. I agree that you learn from failure, but actually succeeding and meeting goals
that's
is a habit in and of itself.
That's a good point. There's a lot of confidence involved in actually.
Right.
And if you've never, I see this, I mean, saw this in my teaching days. We used to, my other job used to teach squids. Used to teach sailors coming right out of boot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And well, not yeah. I mean, it was mostly right out of boot. We were their AIT. If you're army slang, it was A school in the Navy. But one of the things we saw that was one of the most rewarding and kind of unexpectedly awesome things about that school is that, I haven't talked about this much. So I'm just gonna say this. I don't want to give the company any traffic, so I'm not going to say who the company was because I think they're very bad people, and I think they're doing horrible things to the technology that we spent over a decade developing. But we developed, I believe strongly, the best way to teach people that has ever been invented. And we would watch students come out of there literally with 5 months of IT training, and they would kick the shit out of 10-year veterans who were the top people on their ship in actual problems. We put out actual systems that we put actual bugs in that they didn't know shit about. They had a trouble ticket just like they would get on the ship. It was monitored by a team, an independent team of judges. They judged it, and two scientific studies were written on this shit. And these students kicked the shit. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And the most profound thing out of this whole thing was that these students came in, they were kind of like the dregs of society for the most part. Not always. I mean, we had one dude who graduated from MIT in quantum physics, but that's very rare. He was what we call a bud stud. Like he went in to become a SEAL to go through buds,
right?
And he washed out in like 35 seconds or whatever, and so they sent him back to us. That happens a lot. That is, by the way, why the Navy SEALs will let you sign up to be a SEAL right in the recruiter's office, because they know like 98% of you are not going to make it, and you have to go to their secondary qualification, which is what they really wanted you in anyway. So in any event, But the most profound thing about this is, like I said, these are just the dregs of these people were raised in projects. They were raised in schools where no one gave a shit about them. They were raised in homes where no one gave a shit about them. They came in there with, even after boot, with an attitude of, I'm kind of worthless and I'm a screw up and I'm probably not going to make this happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When they got out of that school, just from having the success in that school, just from knowing something and knowing they knew something, right?
Yeah.
They came out with a completely different level of swagger. It was actually remarked on in every single trial. We would have these third-party auditors come in, judges come in and watch this. And part of the trial was an essay question. And so they would ask them an essay question and they would give them their responses, right? And they judged this, right? And they unanimously said, we knew exactly who the digital tutor students were when they walked through the door. Said because the moment they walked in the door, we're like, that person is confident. That person knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you could just see it, and they did not come in that way. So yeah, we do people such a disservice in school by telling them, if you don't do it exactly the way the teacher said, it's wrong. If you ask questions, that's bad. If you make a bad grade, that's bad. Instead of saying, oh, well, see, look, you found out a way that doesn't work.
Right.
Let's find a way that does. You know what I'm saying? We're not teaching children the right thing. And it leads to this problem where they don't have enough confidence to think they can actually do any damn thing. So I guess to your point, I don't feel that. I don't feel that situation where it's very rare I go into something and I think, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm probably on the other side of that camp. I kind of feel like I can probably do almost anything, you know?
Yeah.
But I do get that's not everybody, right? And that if you have not had success, if you didn't have good parents, which nurtured you in that way, right? And you were brought up in a bad place to where everything you did you were told was wrong, then yeah, you're gonna need some small approachable goals that you can actually achieve success in, that make you feel good about yourself, so that you can bite off some bigger goals.
Yeah, right. And just like that approach is a habit, right? It's a way to, you start figuring out that this is something that is successful for me. And just like we talked about before, you get to a point where you're not thinking about it. It's not in the forefront of your mind. It just becomes the way you approach things. Right. Which is kind of the goal, right? You want to, anybody that is wanting to develop good habits, you want to get it to a point where you don't have to keep thinking about it. Right. I mean,
that is the goal. That's what a habit is.
Right.
It's like it's something you do that you don't think about. You just do it.
Right. And so one of the things that I was thinking about as well with this is that, we've talked a lot about what we do, right? Like, we decide this or we decide that. We have some autonomy over that, right? I know.
I'm over here smiling.
I know. I was going to say there's the whole free will thing, but that's not where I'm going. So,
Okay.
We're going to have to quit teasing that and talk about it at some point in the near future. But there also is this idea that sometimes we do things repetitively that aren't up to us. So, we talked about you choose your way to go to work, right? But you're going to work. And when you go to work, there are people that work in factories, right? And your job is to take a widget off of this line and put it in this machine or whatever it is. Like, you've got something that you have to do, that it is a repetitive thing that you have to do. That's not a habit. It's not something that you're doing of your own volition. Sure, you could choose not to go to work or choose not to do your job, but somebody else is directing you to do that thing. Let's just say that if you're a developer like I have been, you might have very specific rules that your company has in the way that you do development. There might be frameworks that you use. There might be just the processes that you use, that if it were up to you, you might not do it that way, but somebody is making you do it a very specific way. To me, those are not habits, even though they're repetitive.
I'm going to disagree with you there.
Okay.
And I've literally not thought about this at all, so I'm just completely going off the cuff here. I would say Whether or not you choose it has nothing to do with whether it's a habit. I would say if you go to work and you do the thing every day, like I've worked in factories, so I know how that works. You get in there, you after you get comfortable with the job, you do it on autopilot. In fact, I wrote some of my best music, which is still not very good, but some of my best some of my best music I wrote working in a factory, because your mind has free reign to do whatever the fuck you want it to do, because there's, what you're doing doesn't require any thought, right? That's still a habit though, because I don't think about it. I don't think about doing it. I don't think about not doing it, right? I walk into work, I punch my time card, I go in there, I start working. I do it exactly the way I was shown, or the way I figured out how to do it, whatever. I don't change that, even though I could, I don't think about it, right? It's not, whether it was imposed on me by someone else or I do it myself. The fact of the matter is, once you do it enough, it makes no fucking difference. That's what you are. This is where I think, I've not given this enough credit, partially because I believed in free will for so long, but I'm not giving this enough credit. But the whole fake it till you make it thing,
right?
Or if you want to like someone, pretend like you like them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really does work, because if you make yourself do something enough, it becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, you don't think about it anymore, and it just overrides the shit. And that's just what you do.
Right.
So it's like, there's a lot of power in that if you can harness it and do that. But I don't think we can just say it's only a habit if you choose it. Like,
well, okay. So I think if I can extrapolate something from what you said, I feel like what you were saying, like, once something has become habitual and you're not thinking about it, once that's entrenched in you, it doesn't, you don't use up any of your reserve of willpower in order to maintain that.
correct.
Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So there have been studies that have been done where people had to do things they were uncomfortable with at work. I don't mean immoral, but just like, for example, speaking in front of a crowd where they don't like doing that, but they it becomes a, they've got to go run a daily meeting that's part of their responsibilities, and they don't like doing that thing. It's something that's uncomfortable.
Gosh, this
for
wouldn't
them.
this wouldn't be outside of your realm of
No, not at
experience.
all. But there have been scientific studies where you have people that they'll do that every day, like a daily stand up or something like that, where it saps their willpower. Like, even though it becomes a habit, even though it's something where they do it every day, they're not going to do it. There are ways that you can test this, right? And this is one of the studies that I read where, you give people like moral dilemmas, and one of them is an easy way and one of them is the right thing. You know what I mean? And then you take people who have a certain level, like the control group, where and look at what their choices are, and then you take somebody that you believe has, no reserve of willpower, and they would be more likely to just take the easy way out of whatever that is, and you test them against that, and they've shown that when you are forced to do something habitually but it's not of your own choice, it actually saps your willpower and makes it less likely for you to be able to use that willpower in other ways.
Okay, I think so. I've not read the study. Again, I'm going straight off the cuff here. I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in this. I think the situation you're describing is you're in a job. Clearly, you've signed up for a study, right? So you're in the study. You've decided to stick with the study, right?
Yeah.
The study makes you do something you don't agree with, right? You stick with it for as long as you stick with it, and then I'm assuming you quit, right? At some point, like there's got to be that.
Well, there's
option.
an end to the study, right?
Okay. Or most studies you can drop out at any point.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Probably.
So, but that to me feels like there's an obvious kind of disconnect. Let me tell you what I'm thinking about. So, my son, my youngest son, he did a job when he first moved back to North Carolina, where he worked on a pig farm.
Mm-hmm.
and part of his job was castrating baby piglets. Okay. Now that job, if you've never heard of it or never seen it, what it involves, and this is basically his description of it.
Yeah.
He says, you pick the little piglet up. It's small enough it fits in your hand. You know, you pick the little piglet up,
Right.
you flip it over, you take a knife, you slice open its nutsack, you snip off one ball, you snip off the other ball, and you drop them back down and let them run off. That's what you do. And that, if you love animals, and he does love animals,
Yeah.
is heartbreaking.
Sure.
But the worst part of it is he said that that pigs are very friendly. And before you snip their balls off, they'll run right up to you, want to play and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
The moment you snip their balls off, they will never come near you again.
Right.
I
I wouldn't come near you either.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
But I feel like that, and like, people work in abattoirs and have to kill the cattle, by taking the bolt gun and putting it up against their head, pop, and the cattle drops, right? I would bet almost everyone, unless they're seriously psychologically fucked up or have worked on a farm for most of their life, almost everyone, when they first start that job, is going to fucking hate it. That's going to be something they're like, I don't know that I can keep doing this, right? But if you continue doing it long enough, you get used to it. Like, it still might cause you some kind of little bit of mental anguish, but it reduces every time you do it, right? So,
well, yeah, it is amazing what you can get used to. Yeah.
People will self-select for that. If you can't do the job, you'll quit. Probably, and I'm not looking into researching this. I'm guessing in the first week, if you don't like either one of those jobs, if you're really strongly dislike those, you hate it, you will not be back. Me, I wouldn't last the first day. I would not last when they said pick up the pig and cut its balls off. I'd be like, yep, there you go, I'm out. But because I can't believe, and part of this is I can't believe, and part of this is it just logically doesn't make sense. I can't believe that everybody who works in an abattoir killing cattle, or everybody who works in a pig farm chopping off pig balls, or everybody who, every cop who picks up a homeless person and gives them a bus ticket to some strange town, I can't believe those people are all horrible people. Maybe the cops, but I can't believe they're all horrible people. Okay. I just can't believe that. I feel like they're probably more normal people, and they just got over that somehow. Maybe the pig farm job or the abattoir job was the only job they could get.
Sure.
And they got a family to support, and they know they can't. That's what happened to my son. He didn't have a family support, but he was on his own at 18 years old. You know what I'm saying? And he did not want to come running back to mommy and daddy, and he wanted to be on his own bad enough that he did it. He swallowed that shit, and he did it, and it hurt less every time he did it.
Okay.
So, and I just know from myself and a little bit down some of the darker paths I've gone in my life, that the more you do things like that, the less hard it is to do more things like that. It's one of the reasons that no matter how mad I've gotten, I have never, ever struck my wife, because I know, because my dad was abusive to my mom. I saw it. I saw how it took a long time for him to hit her once, but when he did, it didn't take very long for him to hit her twice.
Yeah.
And it took no time for him to hit her the third time. You know what I'm saying? It's whatever your resistance to something is. Once you do the thing and you feel like, and you realize, oh, this didn't kill me, right? It's not as resistant the next time.
Well, I feel like we've strayed a little bit from what I was talking about with the study, but I want to address that for just a minute, because I think you're right, but in a couple of different ways. Like, you're right in that once you do it once, it's easier to do it again, whatever it is, no matter how horrible it is. And part of that is there's this threshold effect. You go from being the person that says, I would never do this thing, to that being a lie, right? So at that point, you've crossed a threshold in which it makes it easier in your own mind to kind of justify doing something a second time versus doing it a first time.
Or going a step further too.
Right. But then the other thing is, and I've learned this about myself, not about doing horrible things, but there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable with something if they've never done it before, that they become more comfortable with it because they know what to expect after having done it a first
Sure.
time.
Yep.
So, regardless of whether you're talking about horrible things or you're talking about like in my
Public speaking. Yeah. Public speaking is
right,
very much
public
that way.
speaking,
Yeah.
or like, okay, so here's an example from me. I like to play craps. Like, I really enjoy it. I very rarely get to any kind of casino or anything like that. But when I have had an opportunity to go to, I pretty much go and play craps every time.
I do
Okay?
too. Every time I eat at a really bad Mexican restaurant, I play craps for the next day or two.
Um, how do I follow that up? Uh, the first time that I ever went to a casino to go play craps. There was a
Strange
restaurant.
place to go to play craps, but you do you.
I had played in software for hours. I knew all the bets. I knew how it worked. But like for me to go and actually cash in my money for chips and place my first bet, it took me an hour of standing there and watching other people play first because I didn't want to make a fool out of myself. I didn't know exactly, like I wanted to make sure I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. And I wanted to know, part of it was like, it's gambling, right? How is it going to feel when I lose money? How is it going to feel if I win money?
Right.
Like there was a lot of unknowns, it's like, am I gonna lose all the money I'm planning to bet here in like 20 minutes, or am I gonna be able to play all night? Like, no idea.
Right.
So once I did, so by the way, the very first time that I played, I ended up winning $700 playing craps, which was pretty awesome. I've never won since.
I have never walked out with more money than I went in with. I got to tell you. Never walked out with less either, so I haven't been robbed playing craps.
That's good. but to that point, I've been able to go and play again over and over, much easier because I knew what to expect after that.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is that a habit?
No, I don't think so. I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's more of a you had a situation where you had a definite fear, right? And it's the fear of public humiliation, right? Which is actually the same fear as public speaking, really.
Yeah.
And I think you and me are very similar in that regard, in that I played a lot of online poker for money, but I've never played poker at a casino for money. And it's not because I don't understand the game or know how it's played or anything like that. It's just for that reason. I don't want to make a fool of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there's etiquette issues and all, like, there's all kind of little bit with anything. There's all kind of little things that you don't know about until you do it, right? So I haven't done that either. But I think the issue you're talking about is not a habit. It's that there's a fear, and you need either a strategy to conquer the fear, or you need to see that, or you need to feel that you're prepared well enough that the fear isn't going to apply to you, right? The thing isn't going to happen. So yeah, I don't think that's really related to habit, or even to the thing we were talking about where you get used to the bad thing after you've done it enough. But I will say on that topic, getting used to the bad thing after you've done it enough, public speaking, I think, falls very much into that category. Everybody is terrified the first time they go up to public speak. You're usually pretty terrified the second time. Like, it takes numerous bouts before it, because I have heard of people who are just like, yeah, first time was kind of rough, but after that it was fine.
Yeah.
That is not me. The first time was hard, second time was hard, third time was hard. Like it was hard until it wasn't anymore. And even now, there's occasions which it is still hard. There are certain audiences for which I will get intimidated. There are
But let me, okay, so I'm going to pull this back to habit, though, because I think that it does fit into that. So when you talk about doing something and it's hard, well, if it's something that you're going to have to do a lot, you were a teacher, you were going to have to get up in front of a class and teach every day, right? If that was hard for you, well, anybody that knows that they're going to be doing something every day, and if it's hard to do, if it's something that they're uncomfortable with, if it's something that drains them, you're going to start trying to build ways to make that easier on you. I'm going to pull it back to that idea of that cue, routine, reward thing, because, in this case, the cue is that it got to work, right? It's your job. It's easy to kind of do that. The routine, you know, something that I do. I'm not great about wanting to speak. I'm a IT manager, and I've got a team that I meet with all the time, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. But sometimes I have to manage up, right, and work with leadership and things like that, and it's uncomfortable. And one of the things that I have learned, and I will say that this is a habit, but it's that routine part of it. It's like the reward is feeling like you were successful in that particular conversation. And there are a lot of
or at
ways to
least not
get there.
feeling like you fucked it all up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Um, and my routine, used to be just like panic, right? Like, um, but I've started I realized, I learned about myself that the more organized I was, the better prepared I was for that meeting before I went into it, the more I had rehearsed the things that I wanted to say, or kind of organized my thoughts, had looked at it from their perspective and tried to understand, what they were going to be looking for from me, and those types of things. I would start walking into those kind of meetings much more confident, and that turned into a habit that whenever I needed to be in a situation like that, that just becomes automatically what I do. It's like, oh, I've got to meet with, my manager 3 levels up. Well, I got work to do. That just became one of those things. So I think that even in those kind of things, like when you're talking about, whether it be castrating pigs or whatever, you've got to figure out if it's something that you're doing that's unpalatable to you, regardless of whether it's immoral versus just being, against your better nature, like public speaking or something. Um, you talked about, it becoming easier and easier. I don't think it's easier because you become desensitized to it, as much as I think it becomes easier because, well, for one, like we talked about, you know what to expect, but you also develop your own ways of dealing with it. Just like you were talking about working in a factory, like I remember, I knew you back then, and you were bored to death. And you're talking about you wrote some of your best music. Well, you found ways to occupy your mind so that you could make doing this repetitive, boring job palatable.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people end up doing. That was a habit, right? I mean, I don't know. And again, I'm not sure that I'm going to agree that, you know, taking widgets off of this and putting it on that is a habit. But the things that you do in order to make it palatable, to get through the day, to manage yourself and to continue it is.
I mean, we might just be disagreeing. I kind of feel like they're both habits. One is one that you imposed, and the other is the one that was imposed on you.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think to your other point, like part of it is that you figure out ways to compensate, right? Like, so like you were talking about, I mean, that's a very common way of compensating for almost anything is preparation,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
That's why the military trains so much. I mean, it's like, it's in fact, I would say this is a huge litmus test for whether somebody's going to be successful or not in anything, right? If you tell somebody you got this really difficult thing to do coming up, here you go. Or you give them something, here's this difficult thing. Or they've picked something, here's this difficult thing I'm going to do, right? And then they're not worried about it at all. Oh, I'm going to be fine. I'm just going to knock this out. They're going to fail. Like, I'm just, if they've never done it before, they're going to fail. Now, if they're experts at it, maybe they're fine, but maybe they're not. Like, most experts still do practice before they do these things,
right.
you know? Because it's the same drive, at least for me. I feel like it's the same drive for everybody, but maybe it's not. But for me, the drive is I don't want to look like an idiot, right? I want to be successful. I want to I want people to, I want to get done with whatever I'm doing and people to go, yeah, that was good. You know, I don't want them to go, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? So it's a security blanket. It's a safety net. That's what preparation is. You're preparing so that you can allay all those fears of all the things that might trip you up, right? When you get into the situation. And that's kind of a hedge against your inexperience in the situation, right?
Yep.
I feel like that preparation drive is a habit. Okay.
Yes.
Just the drive,
Yes.
though. I don't think the thing you're necessarily doing to prepare is really a habit unless you're doing it like very often.
Well, I mean, depending on what the situation is, like, you know, it can't be a habit if it changes every time, right? I mean, you know, if it's a situation where you just it's something different every time and you need to prepare for it, but you know, you're not doing the same things to prepare because, you know, every time the topic's different or whatever, like that can't be a habit if it's different every time. But the preparation itself, the drive, like you said, it is. Um so I'm going to say something that it may be kind of a bold thought. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but whenever we talk about habits, particularly when people are talking about stopping a bad habit or trying to develop a new good habit, I think that most people will see it as some task to start doing or stop doing. You know, it's a, you know, we talked about, you know, exercise and diet or smoking or drinking or whatever, but it's like it's a checklist, it's a little box that you check that you say I did the thing. And in fact, there are apps that you can get that are like supposed to help you develop habits by checking off the boxes, right? When you do certain things. Like, you know, for example,
Yeah, I guess even keep kind of falls in that category if you put checklists beside your
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Um but I feel like that's a very temporary sort of thing. And, you know, a lot of times when you talk about the motivation or the cue that drives you towards wanting to do whatever the routine is as part of the habit, a lot of times those things are also temporary. You know, it's like, you know, I'm going to the beach this summer and I want to look good. So I'm going to diet until I go to the beach. But you have no intention of like changing yourself fundamentally. You just want to look good in your swimsuit, right? And I think a lot of people will approach habits like that. I mean, maybe it's a significant thing. Maybe I've smoked for 20 years and I want to quit. Like I really want to quit. But they kind of see it as a switch. Like it's not something that they're going to continue to
Yep.
do. It's a I'm going to stop smoking and then I don't think about it anymore,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Same thing for any number of things. One of the hardest things I feel like is when people talk about eating less because you can quit drinking, like you can quit smoking. You can't quit eating.
Not
You,
entirely, no.
I mean, not for long, but
But you can, I mean, you can do kind of the same things. Like, so a couple.
well, hold on. Let me finish the thought. So here's kind of the bold statement. I don't think that you can truly develop any kind of habit, like a real, like you're talking about, where you don't have to think about it and you just do the thing without fundamentally changing yourself and the foundation of yourself in order for that to work.
Totally agree.
You can't just be the same person, but this person doesn't drink. Or you can't be the same person, but this person finishes all of his projects.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing I think that's difficult. Like I kind of came to this realization, I feel like almost today, you know, is like you we all want to be ourselves, but add this piece or subtract that piece.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack here. So let me
Yeah.
let me kind of walk through this. First of all, the last thing you said, you know, you want to be yourself minus this thing or plus this thing. I think that's part of the problem is we look at ourselves like we're a static thing and we're not. You're not the same you were 20 seconds ago. Like you just aren't. You're a completely different person. So I think to some degree we need to release our hold on this idea that we are this static thing, first off, and then kind of embrace change. But to your point of, it's not really a habit if you don't actually fundamentally change yourself. I kind of agree with that, and I'm going to give you actually two anecdotes on this.
Mm-hmm.
One is, and this is a whole nother subject too, but one is with addiction, is with smoking, and I just want to make this very clear right off the bat. To me, I do not look at smoking as a habit. I look at it as an addiction. Okay. And I'm gonna make a fundamental description difference between those two. I feel like addictions require some kind of intense chemical component. And I know you can say, okay, well, habits may have that too. Like if you eat a whole bunch, it releases endorphins and all that kind of stuff. Okay. But those are endogenous. Those are not exogenous. Okay. I feel like everything that I would consider an addiction, and I'm not an addiction expert, so do not, if you're a sex addiction, addict or worker, a therapist, don't come at me with your shit. Send me some studies. Don't give me vitriol. I will learn. But my point of view on that right now is that with an addiction, you have some chemical dependency that is going to cause physiological effects on your body, right? Which means you can't really just slow it down. You can't, it's pretty well known that, except for the cases in which you absolutely have to, which is like alcohol and opiates, that if you're an addict and you want to stop a substance problem, you have to stop the fucking substance, right? You're not quitting smoking by chewing Nicorette. I'm sorry, you're not. I'm going to tell you a little secret. They're made by the same fucking company, okay? The same company that makes the fucking cigarettes makes the Nicorette.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, okay? It doesn't fucking work. You want to quit smoking? Stop fucking smoking. Don't do it anymore. And I'm speaking from experience here. I smoked at least 2 packs a day for 20 fucking years, and I stopped fucking smoking. How did I do it? I just quit fucking smoking. Now, was it hard? Yes, it was fucking hard. It was really hard for 2 weeks, right? Because for 2 weeks, you've got that physical dependency that rears its ugly head pretty much constantly and tries to claw you back. After that, all you're fighting is psychological.
Right.
And the psychological part is actually worse because at least with smoking, you do it a lot. You do it more than you do anything else besides breathing. Okay.
Well, and I'll say too, we're talking so much about habit, and I smoked as well for a while, not as long as you did, and probably not as much as you did, but I did for 6, 7 years, something like that. And when I quit, I didn't really have as much physiological problems, but it was very psychological. And here's the thing about, we talk about habits, and you said that you see it as addiction and not a habit, but I think it's some of both.
The psychological part is the habit.
Right. Because I was going to say, like, the biggest problem I had when I stopped was that I was used to driving to work and having my window cracked in my car and a cigarette in my hand, and I would smoke on the way to work. And that was what I would do at home every single day. And I didn't smoke that much except during that time. And then suddenly when I quit doing that, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm bored. Like, what do I do? I mean, it was very much breaking a habit because it had become automatic.
Yep. For me, I was prepared for this when I did it this time because I went to this site called whyquit.org, and they talked a lot about this, about how basically after you get through that 2 weeks, then the real work comes where you have to basically go through everything that is a trigger for that habit, right?
Right.
You have
cues.
Yep. You have to hit every single cue. And the more you did it with that cue, more you smoked for that cue, the harder it's going to be to break that cue. So for me, right after eating, right after waking up, on the way to work, at work, whenever I wanted a fucking break, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All those things were cues, and it took a very long time for them to go away. But to your point about not making a permanent change, even with that, I quit cold turkey. I went through, my dad passed like 2 or 3 weeks after I did it. I went through that without starting back.
Yeah.
Okay. I moved to California like 2 weeks after that, went through that without starting back.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a high stress job in California that I was brand new at, that was like, it was much more of a risk than I actually gave it credit for, because, I moved my whole family out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With what if I'd have failed at it, right? What if I got fired 2 weeks in, or what if the company folded 3 weeks? You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, there's all kinds of problems that could have come, and I had no safety net, right? I didn't even have savings. Okay. So I was in bad fucking shape. Went through all of that, no problem. A year later, I come back to visit North Carolina, and the moment we land, I'm ill as a fucking hornet. Like, I'm like biting people's heads off and shit. I'm just angry, right? And I'm sitting in the car on the ride back, and everybody's fucking quiet because I've just chewed somebody's ass out,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, why am I so fucking mad? I don't know why I'm so mad. I'm actually looking forward to seeing everybody. Why am I so angry?
Yeah.
And it hit me that somewhere in the back of my mind, there was this idea that once I got out to California and I got settled and everybody at work knew me and liked me and they weren't going to look down on me for smoking, now I could start smoking again, right? So I could, when I came back to North Carolina, I could start smoking again, and then I could go back and I'd be fine, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere that got lodged in my fucking skull. And I don't know how it happened and I don't know why it happened, but I remember the exact moment that I realized it. And I thought to myself right then, I was like, oh, no, I can't ever smoke again. Like, the moment I pick up another cigarette, I will be smoking for the rest of my life. I can't ever smoke again. And once I made that connection, anxiety went away. It never came back. I've been fine. I've not been tempted. Maybe once or twice I've been tempted when I was drinking or in some new situation or whatever. But like, it's such an easy thing to just say no to. It's back to the discipline thing. Once you've got it in your head, this is who I am. This is how I am. This is what I do. Right.
Right.
There's no willpower involved. It's just what you do.
So I was kind of the same way, and I actually did start back. But so what happened was I quit cold turkey. I just said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to do it anymore. And it was, the idea behind it was just that I wanted to be healthier, right? I mean, that's a good, noble reason to quit smoking, right?
Same reason I quit, actually.
Yeah. But it didn't stick. Like, I didn't smoke for 9 months. Like, went a long time, and it didn't seem that hard. But I will say that, like, every time that I would walk into a convenience store, and in this, I guess it's still this way. I don't pay attention anymore, but you got all the racks of cigarettes that are all there, and sometimes they'd have them up at the front of the counter and all that kind of stuff. And it had become a habit for me to just grab a couple packs of cigarettes when I go into the convenience store. So that was my cue. You'd walk into a convenience store, and every time there was like, I had to consciously think, I'm not going to buy cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise it was fine. But I knew every time I went in there, it was like I was consciously making a choice not to do it. So 9 months later,
eventually your willpower just runs out.
Exactly. I don't remember what the situation was. I just remember that it had been kind of a tough time, week or whatever. And I wasn't planning to walk into this convenience store and buy cigarettes, but I stopped to get a drink, get some gas, whatever. And I went in, and I was faced with that choice. And I made the wrong choice that day. And I bought a pack of cigarettes, and I got in the car and I lit one up, and I smoked for another year after that.
Yep.
I mean, in all seriousness.
Yep.
And then when I finally quit, and of all things, when I finally quit, I had gotten divorced, and I was living by myself, and I was starting to think about dating again. And I was like, I don't want to smell like cigarettes. Yep. And just thinking about introducing myself, and I didn't think about discipline or willpower or making any kind of fundamental change or anything like that. But what I did think about was that I don't want to introduce myself to somebody new as a smoker.
Well, see, that's it. Because you'd made the connection that this is a fundamental change in who I am. I am not the person who introduces myself and smells like a smoker and is a smoker. Yeah. I'm this other person.
Exactly. And I didn't think about it like that then, but it did click, and I quit. and I hadn't smoked another cigarette since then.
Right.
And that was 30 years ago. I don't know, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But it is a fundamental change. You can't just subtract something, and there's a reason it's there. Like there are all these filaments of these things that we do that just entwine themselves all through us, and you can't just take it off like a mole off your cheek,
Right.
and say, well, I'm done with that thing. Like there's so many things that interacts with all those cues and triggers, like we talked about, that who would have thought just walking to a convenience store makes you want to smoke? But I mean, you look at it and all the advertising and everything else that's there, of course it's going to make you think about that.
But I really think you're onto something here about the, it's your mental image of yourself is really what it comes down to, because I'm just plugging this little puzzle piece into the puzzle, and it seems to like line up with everything, because it really is like that. It's kind of like, even when working out, like when I was doing my big transformation thing, trying to go from 300 to 200 pounds, I did the same thing. Like when I saw myself in my head, it wasn't who I saw in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It was who I wanted to see.
Yeah.
You're right. It was, this is what I want to be. This is who I'm going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It wasn't like couched in like excuses or anything. It wasn't, well, if I can, this is what I'm going to be, or
Mm-hmm.
or maybe this is what I want to be.
Or hope.
It was this is what I'm going to be. That's all it was. Like I had made the decision, that's who I'm going to be. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that makes you actually become that. You know what I'm saying? It's that is what makes everything else work. You have to decide that is who you are.
Right.
And once you decide that, I'm not saying the rest of it's easy, but it's not a willpower struggle, because you've changed your paradigm of who you are inside. You are the new person now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that new person does things different.
Yeah.
And so I'm that person. As long as I want to stay that person, I have to do the things that person does. You know, it's the fake it till you make it all over again.
Right. Absolutely. I used to have a coworker that had a sign in their cubicle that said, "Is this who you are, or are you better than this?" And like, I'm sure it was a self-motivating kind of thing for them, but it's like checking themselves on anything that they do. And it's just like, are you true to yourself? That
Right.
sort of thing. But like, I didn't, I kind of saw it as one of these kind of rah-rah, accessories kind of things at the time, you know? But thinking about that now, it's like, I could see where if you truly embrace that, and like you really start trying to bounce everything you do across the idea of, is this how I see myself? Am I doing things that are consistent with who I believe I am? That you're really changing yourself at a fundamental, foundational kind of level. And to me, that's where the most important, most permanent kind of changes happen.
Yeah.
You can't just make a change on, it's like nail polish, like it's going to wear off, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it really comes down to exactly what you're talking about, because it's just, it really comes down to exactly what you were talking about, because it's like, what makes it so powerful is, again, it doesn't require the engagement of system 2. It's all system 1. When you decide you are this person, and you've got this person drawn up in your mind, right? And you're not reaching for that person. You're not trying to become that person. You're not, you don't want to be that person when you grow up. This is who I am.
Right.
Right? When you decide that, you don't have to make any more decisions about that. Like every time you start to do something, your system 1 automatically knows who it is, right? And it says, nope, we don't do that, right? Yeah. And so it never even surfaces to your consciousness. It never even comes up that there's a choice to do this shit, because that urge never comes up. It's just, nope, not doing that. And you go do something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, that's the power. Like these people who think they have to gut through everything, you're doing it all wrong.
Right.
Decide who you are, right? Decide that. That tells you what to do.
And it's probably not just as easy as
Oh
I
no, I
decided.
didn't say it's easy.
No,
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but you know, part of that. So you said something earlier, and I really like what you said, but you were talking about how like discipline breeds habit, but it goes the other way around too. It's kind of the fake it till you make it thing. Like decide who you are and behave like that person in whatever way that means. And it's going to be hard at first because you're going to make yourself think about it. Like you're not going to be able to engage just
Yeah, but
that.
it's not like you're consciously trying to remember. That's the other thing. It's like what happens is you start to do the thing that's habitual for you, which is the wrong thing,
Yeah.
right? And system one pops in and goes, "Wait a minute, nope,"
Yeah. Right.
right? And it reminds you. So it's even better because it's not only are you not constantly thinking about it, you don't have to.
Right, but you don't get there immediately is the point. Like you have to practice it before you get to the point where it's a habit. Like, you know, I might decide that I am, you know, that I am gonna, you know, that I'm super fit, okay? And I'm gonna start engaging in habits that are gonna that are gonna match that. But it's not I'm not super fit. You know what I mean? Like
No, yeah, you can't be delusional.
no, right. But what I mean is, like, I may not even be able to do all the things that I need to do to be there yet. But you start practicing it. You start practicing, okay, this is who I am. So these are the things that I need to do. I think it starts as a conscious decision.
Yep.
But the thing is, and this is kind of like we were talking about, like fake it till you make it. It's almost like you're doing that here. It's like, okay, if I'm going to behave as if this person, these are the things that I have to do, and you start doing them and you continue to reinforce that within your own head. You know, I'm doing this because this is who I am. This is who I am, so that's why I'm doing this. And until eventually you kind of reprogram your brain in that way. Yeah.
You end up becoming that person.
Right.
Yeah, it's I don't know, that's I think really the crux of it is because like, you know, even I mean, this is why diets yo-yo too, right? So like,
Oh yeah.
you know, I when I did my thing, I made the decision, you know, this is the person I'm going to be, right? And it took me about 2 years, but then I was that person, right? And so I'm like, great, I'm that person. Almost immediately, I binged. Like
Yeah.
it was like literally the month. Like I went and binged. I gained like 10 pounds, right? And then I took off like 5 of it, and I was okay. I still looked pretty much the same, you know, and I kept it that way, right? But then I got injured. I popped a disc in my neck, and spent about a year trying to recover from that. But I still kept my weight fine, right?
Yep.
I was still in good shape. My weight was still good. I lost a lot of muscle mass on one side because of, you know, the injury, but I built it all back. Well, most of it back anyway. And that was all good. But I kept, I don't know, I kept going through these phases of trying to get to higher peaks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know, okay, I hit 12% body fat. Let's hit 10% body fat.
Yeah.
You know, let's hit 8% body fat. Let's hit 6%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The bar keeps moving.
Right.
Yep.
I keep trying to set a new goal. Right.
Yep.
And it gets harder every time. And what happens when you go on these extreme bouts of dieting? You know, they're temporary for starters, right? That's not a change to who you are. The change to who I am is really the fact that I track my calories every day now.
Yeah.
I know exactly how much I'm eating. If I get fat, I know exactly why. There's never a question for me about why did I get fat. I know exactly why I got fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I track my workouts, right? I know exactly what I did, you know, well, I used to until they killed the service. Anyway, know exactly what I did 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can compare to that, you know? So there are fundamental changes in how I order my life and the things I do with that. You know, I do not go out and just randomly eat shit, right? Mm-hmm. But dieting to hit a certain body fat level is a temporary thing. It's a transitional thing.
Right.
You do not stay at even 10% body fat. You're right. Unless you're one of those lucky people who that is your metabolic set point.
Mhm.
In which case, it's perfectly healthy to do that. But I got to tell you, the average male, not the fat males, the average, and if you see somebody and you say that's about an average weight male,
Yeah.
they're probably 20 to 25% body fat, maybe on the high end 30%.
Okay.
Okay. The average female is probably 30 to 40%.
Right.
Right. So if you're a male and you want to be 10% body fat walking around all day, every day, all the time, that's very hard to achieve if you're an average male. It requires pretty extreme dieting all the time, and it's always going to be painful, and nobody's willing to do that, unless like their job depends. You know what I'm saying? If you're a model or an actor or whatever. But if you're just a normal Joe doing a normal 9 to 5 job, you're not going to be willing to do that, right? You have to decide on a sustainable you. Right.
Yeah.
Right. What are you willing to put up with? Like you, and part of the problem, part of the reason I think people, especially in fitness, they make really unachievable goals, right? And not that they can't achieve them. It's just that they're not willing to put in the effort required to do that, right? They don't want it that bad, right? I mean, just be clear. Like, if you want to get healthier and you want to be strong, that's easily achievable. Like it's not that hard. It's not easy, but it's not that hard, right? If you want a world-class physique where people are people are paying money to take pictures of you, right? That especially
is incredibly hard.
Yeah, and if you want to sustain it year-round, that's almost impossible. Like you have to be willing to put up with more pain than you're probably willing to put up with, So that's all I'm saying there. But no, I do think you're definitely onto something about the it's a fundamental change to who you are and how you do your life, or it just does not stick.
So probably the last thing that I want to talk about, and I think that's a good segue into it, and I don't want to go too far into this because I feel like we could talk about it for hours, but talk about making a change to your life. There's a book that you and I both read that we've both in conversations have said reading this book.
Oh, this must be 7 Habits.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Reading this book actually changed who we were.
Yes.
Like it was a fundamental change to, I feel like, our lives.
Yep.
Right. And absolutely, I mean, we could get into all the nitty gritty of all that. I don't really want to go and like do a book discussion necessarily on it, but
yeah, I think Stephen Covey's estate has more than enough money.
But I will say that I felt like I learned some things by reading that caused me to really look at who I was,
Yep.
right? Like that's really kind of the point of that. I mean, it's talking about developing habits, right? Just like we are, but it's talking about developing habits for success, which everybody wants, right? But I think the thing that I thought was like when I was first introduced to it, I probably rolled my eyes a little bit at it, if I remember right.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I did. I definitely did. Yeah, for sure.
But the more you read it, like it made sense in a way that not a lot of things did. And, it's when you look at it, it's very easy to look at it. Like one of the habits is think win-win, right? You look at that and it sounds so cliche, and you're like, well, of course, yeah, whatever, and you don't really internalize it. But what really struck me about it was how there were fundamentals. It wasn't, some strategy to give great presentations. It wasn't some strategy on, making friends and influencing people necessarily, They were, like the one I think that stuck with me the most as far as habits was the one where it said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And I was actually in an interview one time, and I got the job because I quoted that. I am almost certain of that because they in the interview they asked me how I would handle a particular situation, and basically what I said was that I wanted to find out more about whatever, and then I said something about seek first to understand, and then I would explain it to him and be understood. And the guy looked at me and said, "Oh, are you Covey trained?" And I was like, Well, I mean, yeah, kind of,
That's so cringy. It's like, did you go to the seminar? You know.
But that was a really fundamental thing about, like, it seems simple. Just understand what you're talking about before you start talking,
Yep.
right? Like that seems super simple. You know how many people don't do that?
Oh yeah. Most people are. I mean, everybody does. Right? Everybody's has some thread in their head that is thinking about what they're going to say, what the other person's thinking, right, or what the other
Yeah.
person's speaking, right. But I think the thing that fundamentally makes this difficult is that you don't really realize, because you have this kind of subjective impression that you've got 1,000 thoughts running through your head.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you can only pay attention to one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So if you're paying attention to what you're going to say, you're not paying attention to what the other person's actually saying.
Exactly.
So you might actually be talking past each other,
Right.
about the issue, So yeah, I think that to me, that wasn't the most valuable part of that book, but it was a valuable part of that. Honestly, I think the most valuable part of that book for me was, and I just thought about this. I've just kind of made this connection the other day when we were discussing this in the basement. Um, we were discussing the whole the growth mindset versus the static mindset.
Right.
That you're either born with talent or whether you believe that you're capable of developing anything that you're willing to actually expend effort on. Right. I kind of think I need to credit Covey for being probably the biggest influence to me in switching me to a growth mindset. Because honestly, before Covey, like when at that point, we were both working at Computer Source One. We were glorified break fix PC techs is what we were. I mean, we did a little bit of networking stuff, but not really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and a little bit of server stuff, but not really. You know what I'm saying? Like
we dabbled.
Right. And at that time, I thought it was basically going to be, before I read that book, I remember when we worked at CompUSA together, we would watch the CNAs, the network, admins and stuff walk through, strutting with in their suits and ties, and we thought, damn, man, they're making good bank, and they must be super smart. I don't think I could ever do that, stuff like that, right?
Right.
Seriously, that's how we thought, or at least that's how I thought, like, shit, I thought I was lucky as hell just to be working on computers,
same. And when I got to go like do the training and get like compact certified, so I could actually do like warranty work.
Repairs,
I thought that was like my first quote unquote certification I ever had. That was amazing.
Yeah. So I felt like I just didn't think I was capable of doing that. And then I read that book, and all of a sudden, I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I kind of came, and I think Think and Grow Rich led me down the wrong path, but I still put it in there because I still think it's a pretty good book, as long as you realize that its whole message is determination kind of trumps everything. Like, if you want to be successful, you don't fail until you quit. So, but that also goes in contrast with the other thing I was talking about earlier about the opportunity cost for quitting. So, like I said, I think it kind of might have led me in kind of the wrong direction. But the Covey book, I think, really gave me the idea that I could do things, and so if you look at both of our careers, they kind of went stratospheric shortly after Computer Source One. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We went from just kind of plodding along to the same kind of jobs, and kind of looking at jobs as, kind of like, to quote Chris Rock, a job ain't nothing but work,
Right.
Kind of looking at it from that perspective to looking at it from a perspective of, no, I can be something. I can be somebody. I can do things.
Yes.
I'm capable. I can make things happen, and I think once you embrace that mindset, I mentioned this before, and this is cliche, but excellence is a habit.
Like, it is.
Like, I have never met anyone who is excellent at something who is not excellent at a lot of other things. Like, you don't get really good at, you don't get world class at something, right? without learning how to be successful at everything else, because it's all the same skill set.
Right. It's kind of like when I was talking earlier about you need to practice finishing, right? Well, I mean, just somebody once told me, thinking about people in jobs, that you've got people that want to do just enough not to get fired, and then you got the people that want to do the best they can. And it doesn't matter what kind of job you're talking about. And those are the people that you're talking about. It's not the people that just want to get by. It's the people that want to be good. Like they want to learn more, they want to do more, they want to be the one that you call when you got a problem because they're the one that can solve it for you. And you're absolutely right. They've practiced that. They practice that. It's their habit, and it's going to be at work. But you know what? You're right. They've probably got some hobby that they're really good at too, and whatever. And yes,
And I mean, we've all got like slightly different proclivities, right?
Sure.
Like some of us are smarter than others, some of us are better athletes than others, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, it's like it's and we've talked about this offline too. But the kids these days, they have this phrase "try hards,"
right.
which I definitely fit in that category. Despite this podcast, I do actually fit in that category. Anyway, for a try. The problem I really have with that phrase, I have two problems with that phrase. One is it's kind of looking down on the people who are really trying to succeed, which I think is dangerous.
Yeah.
From a societal level, and I know that's been going on for a long time. I think Asimov was the one that said, the United States has a culture of ignorance, right?
Yeah.
But so that's been happening for a long time, but I still think it's something that needs to be addressed. But the second thing is it's just completely fucking wrong. Like, people who they call tryhards aren't actually trying hard. Like, not in the way they think of it. It's not like they're whipping themselves every morning to do the work harder. It's just that's just what they do. They've decided I am this person who is good at things.
Yeah.
And therefore, when I do something, I'm going to be fucking good at it.
Right.
And if I'm not good at it, I'm going to be upset at myself, and I'm going to go practice harder until I fucking am good at it. And so it's one of those things that bothers the shit out of me, because it's like, my wife has said this to me 1,000 times. She said things like, you're just good at everything you touch. And I'm like, no, I'm fucking not. I'm not any better at anything than anybody else when I first started. The difference is, you don't see that I sit in a room for 12 hours practicing this fucking thing so I can get better at it. That's why I'm better at it,
I have somebody that I'm used to be very good friends with, that had a job doing something else and decided they wanted to teach. Okay. And
oh, wait, is this me?
no. I did say used to be good friends.
We still are, but we also used to be,
True. That's right. It was not mutually exclusive. That's right. No, and they went to go teach high school. Okay. And when they went there, this is a person that I would consider that has that growth mindset. Somebody who wants not just to be adequate at what they were doing, they want to be good at it. They want to be seen as somebody that's good at it.
Right.
And they struggled because, frankly, there was a lot of work to do. Like, people like to look at teachers and think, oh, they get the summers off, they get out of work early, whatever. But, this person was coming home and, grading papers for 3 hours at night, was trying to give valuable feedback to the students, not just slash through something on a piece of paper, but actually, trying very hard to do something meaningful for the students, was trying, really hard to do a good job. And then was just burning themselves out because they were doing that. And it was, they were spending 14 hours a day trying to do all this, between the teaching and everything they were doing at night and everything else. So they went to the principal and said, I don't know how other teachers do this. Like, what am I doing wrong? What should I be doing differently? Because
just try less hard.
They said, you gotta learn not to care so much.
Oh, yeah.
That
seems like exactly the wrong thing to be telling someone trying to give our youth hope and
exactly. And they quit the job.
Yeah, they should have.
They said, I can't do that then. And that's the epitome of that growth mindset, and that's that habit of excellence, is that if you find that you're doing something that doesn't match your vision of who you are and you can't make it match, you have to do something
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's way too much, way too much of that, internal conflict for you to be able to, you can't do some. I mean, you can, but if you've got a choice, you're not going to do something every day that makes you feel horrible. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
You're not going to go into work, kill yourself, and then see no results from it,
Right.
or go into work and not kill yourself and see that I'm not doing the best I could for these students, and now there's a this cadre of 20 students are going to be worse off because I didn't put in the effort.
Right. Yeah. That would be an awful
Yeah.
feeling.
So you're in a no-win situation. I mean, the best you can hope for at that point is, well, if they're going to get this bad training, no matter what, this bad instruction, no matter what, then maybe somebody else should do it. Somebody else that doesn't give a shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like we've talked about a lot of different things here. We've went on a bunch of rabbit trails. I think it's been a good conversation though. And, you know, something that I know just going forward it's always difficult for me is that, you know, there is a complacency that I think exists in everybody that sometimes, you know, we talk about habits, we talk about how to apply these things, how do we do whatever, but there's a lot going on in our world that are distractions, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we're talking about like working out or running or whatever, sometimes we're trying to distract ourselves from the fact that it hurts while we're doing it, but we think it's good, so we do that. But also, like, there are a lot of things that we tell ourselves, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to be this person. I am going to, whatever. I'm going to stop, whatever. And then you start, like whether it be social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, or, watching something on, streaming on Netflix or YouTube or whatever. But it's like there is so much content and media and things that are out there that are just waiting to distract you from what you're trying to do. That's kind of where my mind was when I first started thinking about how much you need to make a fundamental change, because that is something that I struggle with. Like, I had set this goal for myself at one point where, kind of like when we talked about just going into the gym, like you don't have to commit to completing your entire workout, but show up, right?
Yep.
And I kind of done that for myself when I was thinking about video game development. Was I only, I'm going to commit to spending 15 minutes a day, like working on it. That's not much time. You can't do much in 15 minutes for the most part. But the idea is that you get started.
Right.
And then once you get started, sometimes you kind of just,
you don't want to stop.
Yeah. Exactly. It kind of just takes over. But then it would get to where, like, it's very easy to like get distracted. And it's like, I'll start that 15 minutes later, because I'm just going to do this other thing now, So you've got to really guard yourself. And again, that's where I think that fundamental thing is that, you can come up with all these ideas, cues, whatever, things to get you started, things to keep you motivated or whatever. But if you're not actually changing fundamentally, I believe in this because it's part of who I am, it's just so easy to let yourself get distracted from everything. And
it's because you have to put effort into
right,
it.
Right. You're making a decision,
right,
a choice as to whether I'm gonna do this or do that.
You got to get rid of the choice, right? It's exactly what what I tell anybody who has a problem where they snack on certain things at night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They like a little chocolate at night, or they like eat a bowl of cereal, or whatever it is. Right? It doesn't matter. And they're like, oh, I need to lose weight, but I can't because I keep snacking at night. Yeah. My suggestion is always this: do not have the fucking thing in your fucking house.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you like to eat, don't have it in the house.
Right.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get dressed, drive your fucking car to the store, get the thing, and come on and eat. If you do that every day, if you are going to get up and do that every day, so be it. But obviously you want that worse than you want to be thinner.
Now I have found myself just to get up and go to Taco Bell at like 11:30 because I wanted to snack
every night.
No.
Okay, so here's the other rule. With diet and exercise, what you do 90% of the time matters. What you do 10% of the time does not.
Yeah.
So, if you have, one day a week where you make a small boo-boo, unless your deficit is so fucking tiny
Yeah.
that you're just scraping by anyway, you're still going to lose weight. You're not going to lose as much, but you're going to lose weight. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you're still on the path. But the whole thing about, if you know you have a propensity to snack on something that you really like and it's in your fucking house, get it out of your fucking house.
Yeah, just like we were talking about the alcoholic in a bar, right?
Right.
Like, don't tempt yourself.
Right.
If that's something you want to quit, you don't go buy a pack of cigarettes and say, I'm not going to smoke them.
Yep.
It's
like, in fact, I'm straight up with my wife about this. I told her basically, look, I like chocolate and I like anything sweet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to have those things, that's fine. But fucking hide them because I will eat them all. Okay?
Well, and I've said the same thing. It's like, it's like somebody will say, "Hey, I'll like bake some brownies." I'm like, I wish you wouldn't, because I'm gonna eat them if you do.
Right. Right. So yeah, just try to just eliminate the temptation as much as you can, and then make the decision that you are this new person, not you're trying to be that person, not you're going to become that person. Be very clear into who this person is, have a clear vision. This is, you put that person in a situation. This person will do this, he will not do that. He will do this, he will not do that. Figure it out. When that person is solid in your head, you're good. You'll every day as you're going through your day, every time it comes up that you're tempted about something, think to yourself, am I the kind of person that does that thing? And if the answer to that is no, fucking don't do it.
Yep. One thing I'll say too is that then protect that person, because there are things that happen every day that can change the way that you see yourself. So keep that solid. Right?
And just because you fuck up once or twice does not mean you're not that person.
Right. But even from yourself.
Yep. Even from yourself.
Absolutely.
But you definitely will have to protect from other people, especially in the addict side of this, because people, they cannot help it. It is human nature. When someone in your social group is elevating themselves, the rest of the social group is going to want to try to pull that person down.
Yeah.
They just are. They're not bad people. They don't mean to do it. Here's what's happening. Internally, they see you doing better than them. They see you doing something that they wish they could do, but that they don't feel like they have the willpower, the capability, or whatever to do, right? So they feel bad because and that makes them take it out on you. Okay.
Right.
So
yeah, it's like, I remember telling my kids when they were little, when people would say mean things to them in middle school, or, bullies or other things like that, it always says more about the person who is doing that, who's saying the mean things, who's being the bully, than it does about the person that they're bullying.
Sure.
Like, it is so much more about them being self-conscious or just having a low self-esteem about themselves. And it's like, if I can make myself better than you, it's easier to pull you down than to pull myself up.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly
absolutely.
it.
Well, man, I think we've probably covered it all for today.
Yep.
I'll just say, for everybody that's out there that's listening, thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the F'ing Up the Ineffable podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. If you didn't, well, thanks for sticking around this long anyway. We are available on most major podcast platforms, including Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. We are currently releasing new episodes every 3 weeks on Thursdays, but hope to increase the frequency of releases in the near future. Please subscribe to us on your favorite platform to be informed when new episodes release. And also, we love feedback. Feel free to find and follow us on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, or Facebook, and let us know what you think. You can also email us at effinguptheineffable@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.